Hello, everyone. Welcome to another Teacup For One Oscar Movie Marathon live show. My name is Matt, and I have 2 degrees. How many people do we have joining us tonight? We've got Aubrey. Aubrey is back. Good evening, Aubrey. Thank you for joining us. Looks like we actually have 3 people watching already. Like 3 people watching the moment I hit go live. This is like a new record. Eliza, my favorite kitty, you're watching. I love you. So, welcome, friends. If anyone is watching for the very first time, welcome to the Teacup For One Oscar Movie Marathon. A little bit of history about what we're doing tonight. For the past few weeks, ever since the Oscar nominations were announced, we've been coming together once a week, usually Wednesday nights. Tonight, special edition. It's a Thursday because selfishly I was booked on another job last night, but we are coming together to talk about one of the Oscar-nominated films. So, as per every Oscar season, there were some very interesting selections. Thus far this year, we talked about Being the Ricardos. We spoke about Don't Look Up, Power of the Dog. Was there another one? No, I don't think there was. Maybe there was. I can't remember. Tonight we're talking about Dune. That's a movie. That's a movie that exists. And apparently there's going to be at least one more because I don't think Denis Villeneuve really advertised it, but like within the first 5 seconds of the movie, it says Dune. Then underneath in tiny letters, it says part 1. And then my mind was like, what? This is already a 3-hour movie. Are you telling me in a few years I have to sit through like another 3 hours at least of you spewing nonsense words at me like Kwisatz Haderach? We'll get there. We will get there. But let's just find out who is joining us for this evening. We have an esteemed panel, as per usual, some very insightful, wonderful guests, and I'm so excited to talk about this movie with. Here we go. Coming in first, who's it going to be? They don't know. Let's start with Jeanette. Look, everyone, it's Jeanette.
Hey.
Jeanette, thank you for joining us to talk about Dune. I can't wait to hear your thoughts on this.
Well, good, because I'm excited to talk about it.
Hooray! So yeah, Jeanette, tell us a little bit about you for anyone who might not be familiar. Who are you? What does Jeanette do?
So I am Jeanette. I'm TinkerJ787 on Instagram. So you can find me there. I do mostly Disney things. I've been doing a Marvel Monday post where I talk about the ladies of Marvel. We just kind of recently got back from a trip. And in very slight reference, only that it's early 80s science fiction to right now, I'm also a huge Tron fan, which may or may not find its way into my discussion later.
I respect that. No, the original movie had a very Tron vibe, which I think was more 80s than anything else, but the 80s
exactly.
was science fiction era in and of itself.
Yes.
Who else we got here? William, the unknown shout out. Thanks for joining us, William. Aubrey, they only got through the first half or through half of the first book, so they better have a second half. Oh, I'm sure they will have a second half. Though my understanding is that there's a bunch of books. So who knows how many movies he's going to make. Who knows? We'll find out together, I'm sure. All right. And our, I almost said Tron expert. I'm going to say our resident Dune expert for the evening, joining us for the very first time on the channel, my friend and yours. Oh, wait, hold on. Look, Martha's here. There we go. No, my friend and yours. It's Alex Titei, everyone.
Oh, hi, everybody.
Hi, Alex Titei.
Hi. I'm certainly not a Dune expert. I have not read any of the books. I've only watched the 84 film like a myriad of times growing up, and then I briefly indulged the miniseries Children of Dune. That's where my knowledge comes from, and some Wikipedia searches. But I do love the 84 film.
That's enough to make you a Dune expert. You watch something beyond the 84 film.
It's true. Yes. I also watched the 2021 film.
You did, but you went into the 2021 film with the knowledge, with the knowledge pool that you gained from.
I gained from 10, at least 10 viewings of the 1984 Dune.
Plus that the other thing, the Children.
Yeah,
of
Children
Dune.
of Dune.
Yeah.
Water.
Sure, why not? Oh yeah. So for anyone who doesn't know you, which is probably most people watching, who are you? What do you do? Who's Alex?
None of their business really. No, I'm nothing, nobody special. Just a performer, an actor who tries to do mostly artistic things, little performance, directing, producing, even whatever I can, and then in the meantime, whatever other means I can find to make money. I'm not on social media or anything like that. I'm pretty secluded that way. So yeah, no Instagram or anything, but
Yeah, you don't have an Instagram. I tried to tag you in this, and I realized you don't have an Instagram. It's like, how do I get in touch with him? Then I remember to have you on Facebook, which is
Yeah.
technically social media, just not like public-facing social media.
yeah, you know, I have a YouTube account as well. You know, that's
You
technically
do?
yeah. I mean, I think you have to have one to subscribe to channels and stuff like that. So
Oh, but like,
I
do you
have
put
a
out
YouTube.
content, like just videos of you singing?
No, I do upload private and unlisted videos for audition purposes as an actor. So I have a slew of private videos on my other YouTube channel that nobody knows about.
We'll ask more about the private Alex YouTube videos later. Oh, look at the Alex. Martha's complimenting you on your shirt.
Oh wow, this whole thing. Oh
I
yeah,
know.
I just
Why
got
don't
it.
you show? What
Yeah,
is
I
that?
just got it the other day. It's this really funny shirt.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
Where
Matata.
would one get that shirt? It means worry. That's inverting my expectations, and I think it's brilliant.
Yeah, I think you can get it at the Teacup For One merch.
Wait a second.
Store.
That's where I got this shirt.
Wow, what a coinkydink.
I know. And if anyone would like to get one of these shirts or countless others, there is a link in the comment section. And yeah, do it. That's all I have to say about that. But yeah, going back to Dune instead of all the self-promotion, here we go. Mary's with us. I love Mary.
Hi,
Mary, it's a
Mary.
jolly holiday with you. Thanks for joining. Aubrey, fun fact. The copies of the Dune trilogy I read belong to my aunt and my mother. So, oh, you have a Dune family. I love that. Now, and this is something that I have actually come to realize with Dune is that there's just like, there's so much from my understanding in the Duneverse, which is a word I just made up, trademark Matt. There's so much in the Duneverse that is outside of the scope of the film that I think to appreciate this movie and all Dune things, you have to go in knowing all the other stuff, or at least maybe you don't have to, but I think it definitely helps. It's kind of similar to how I felt when the first Harry Potter film came out. Like, I think the other ones as they go on are self-sustaining as films, but I don't think the first movie makes any sense really unless you have the well of knowledge that comes from the books. And actually, a friend of mine / also Alex knows Finn Cuthbert.
Mhm.
Yes, Finn is a mutual performer friend of ours who has apparently read most of the books, and he wasn't able to join us today, but he wrote something really insightful that I wanted to read just as like the perspective of someone who does love Dune. Let me see if I can find it. Actually, while I'm looking for what Finn had to say, let's just do a quick initial go around and hear people's original thoughts, not just about this movie, but I want to hear your first encounters with Dune, whether it was the 1984 film, and then we'll move on to this film, because I think everyone here started by seeing the 84 film. I know I did. It was literally days before I saw the new one. It was with Alex right down there. There was pizza, and there was me being frustrated a lot and pausing the movie every 5 seconds and saying, what does this word mean? And there it was. The 84 movie frustrated me so much, but in the best way possible. Like, I was enjoying how angry it was making me just because of how off the wall and ridiculous it was. And I thought the aesthetic was a lot of fun. It felt to me very early Doctor Who, which I very much enjoyed. The colors were bright. It was just kind of a fun sci-fi romp, and I enjoyed it thoroughly. Jeanette, how about you?
So my first interaction with this was similar to most science fiction at an early age, was through my dad. And it was, I don't know if it was on TV or on VHS, because he had it on VHS, and it was like the 2 tapes, because it was long. And that was a big deal then. So you had 2 tapes, and he had the book. And I was a big reader as a kid, but that seemed very intimidating. And I do think he only had the first book, but he had read all of them, to my knowledge. Like, he seemed to know it forwards and backwards. And so I feel like I got a lot of it through osmosis. Like, I just absorbed a lot of it from him. But I did watch the 84 film a ton when I was a kid, not at all for a long time. And then I've watched bits and pieces of it, like, as an adult. So going into this movie, I was very excited to see it. I was ready to like it. So I go into it with a little bit of bias. I would say that as an early like, just disclaimer, it did not give me the feels I thought I was going to get from it. Like, I thought I was going to freak out and just be like, dude, because that's what happened when the new, and again, I'll start my Tron thing here. Only, again, it's early 80s. It's from my dad. I really love it. I love everything about it. And when I saw Tron Legacy, I was like, yeah, this is amazing. And that didn't happen here.
Yeah, fair.
Unfortunately.
And Alex, how about you? What's your relationship with the 80s Dune before we move on to the new film?
Yeah, no, my story is relatively similar to Jeanette's. Yeah, my parents, my dad. Now I don't know, but I don't believe he read the books. But he, he introduced me to the movie, the '84 film. Of course. Anyway, I was watching it growing up in the '90s, and yeah, for me, it was a movie that we would watch like kind of every year, once or twice. And then, yeah, and then as I grew older, less and less, and probably until this year, until I watched the new Dune, the 2021 Dune, I hadn't watched the old Dune probably for around 10 years. So, but yeah, so going into the new Dune, okay, to wrap up the old Dune, I really enjoyed the old Dune when I was growing up. I didn't understand a ton of it. It's, in my opinion, it's a very difficult movie to fully comprehend in terms of understanding like the universe and all the exposition that it gives, because it gives a lot of exposition, but it gives like, it'll say one sentence that includes like a very important piece of content, and then it'll like, give you 40 more sentences, and it's like, especially as a kid, but I would wager even as a intelligent adult, like I would say for most people, you're gonna have to watch the '84 Dune multiple times to be able to understand everything that's being said. But anyway, I enjoyed it, and so going into the new Dune, I had a similar thing where the only difference was I'm more pessimistic by nature, so I was anticipating being disappointed, but I didn't want to be disappointed, if that makes sense. So I was excited that there was a new Dune to an extent, and I was on like alert for how I was ready to compare it to my experience as a child, basically, and with the my experience with the original Dune movie. And after I watched the new one, that my impression was very similar to Jeanette's, where I noted I enjoyed the movie. I thought the acting was great. I thought all the individual components were great, but it didn't compare to the experience that I had. And I was wanting. I wasn't necessarily expecting, but I was wanting to kind of experience the nostalgia that I had as a child, and I didn't get that. And I kind of, in my head, I had very specific kind of reasons, very specific comparisons that I was making. A moment would happen in the movie, and I would think to myself, I can remember that exact moment in the old movie, and that old movie moment that I have in my head is way better. So
the tooth or the hand or both?
The box, the tooth, many moments. The
Gotcha.
slow blade penetrates the shield. I'll get back to that if I am given the opportunity. But anyway, yeah. So yeah.
Fascinating. Yeah, so we're going to circle to the new movie in a second. Just Mary has some fun comments here. Excited to see how we feel about it. But right here, it helps knowing something about the history of Dune. It made a lot more fun knowing Star Wars was based on it. Angry Matt is very entertaining. I believe so, at least. Maybe one day you'll see, Mary. Maybe it'll be tonight, depending on how deep into this movie we end up getting. But no, I want to read what Finn had to say as somebody who does love Dune and appreciated this movie, because I think it's an interesting perspective to move us into talking about this new film, the Oscar-nominated one. He said, it's worth noting that this movie was made by a Dune fan and primarily made for Dune fans. The book alone is a very difficult book to get into. It doesn't explain any nouns, and it just plops you right into stuff, letting you struggle and tread water until you decipher it. Once you do, you're open to a world of bizarre and wonderful things, which I think is an interesting point. And it makes me so curious about the book, because that's the impression I get. I felt watching this movie that if I were to read the book, things wouldn't make much more sense, or they might be slightly more convoluted, and it's like something that you just have to understand to understand. So just purely in terms of, I guess, plot comprehension, how do you think this movie did in terms of conveying the world of Dune and the plot and the characters to potential first-time viewers who might not have had that encounter or that history with watching the film from the 80s? Jeanette.
So just as a quick with the books, I do distinctly remember many times I've contemplated starting the book and I just never have. It even at my age now, it still seems it still seems really intimidating. And just especially because like I've gone maybe now I could pick it up because I've gone digital, so like there's not that visual like, oh my god, this is enormous and there's like 6 more of these. But I do distinctly remember my dad telling me, you are lucky if you start it now. I read it when it first came out and there was no like compendium of blah blah blah. So I feel like if you pick up those books now, you can have a glossary, or probably just comes with one in the back now, to just immediately know. They probably give you some sort of insight. But again, I haven't picked it up, so I don't know. But I do think that's probably a huge help. As far as the plot, I think that one of the things that this movie did get entirely right, that the one from the 80s got entirely wrong, was do not try to put the whole book or 2 books or whatever don't put any one of these books in one movie. Like it's that just, especially in today's day and age when like, if you're just make a series, I honestly, and I'll just say it now, I was going to save it for a big nugget at the end, but I think this would have done really well as a cinematic series.
Oh, completely.
It would have been
Definitely.
Fabulous. So I just feel like this story especially just yearns for it because it's so dense and it's so full of, like, I'm a sucker for world building movies. That's why like people poo-poo Avatar and I'm like, no, there's 6 more of these, please just give them to me. And there's the actual world, so like give me a world building universe anytime. Great, I love it. So I mean, I think as far as plot comprehension, this movie's doing fine. Like I don't feel like anybody would be overwhelmed or I mean, I was underwhelmed only because of my expectations. I think if you go into this with 0 expectations, you're not going to be underwhelmed.
Yeah, I felt like this movie, well, I think it made a lot more sense to me having like a day or 2 prior have watched the ones from the 80s, and then this one just kind of, it felt like it was explaining things that were very confusing to me in the 80s film in a much more concise way, just about the politics of the different houses and the whole thing about Paul's family suddenly getting control of the sand planet and like why that was happening. It just felt like that made more sense. And I don't know if I would have had that comprehension had I, again, not gone into it with some prior Dune knowledge. But yeah, I think like narratively, the plot was kind of there, but then also, yeah, and I was going to save it for my big nugget too, but let's just call a spade a spade. This should have been a TV show. It should have been like a Game of Thrones style something, like big budget, take as many seasons as you need to, because there are like an endless amount of books, as I understand it. Like just maybe end the series after the original Dune, but then if it does well, have more seasons with more Dune, because I think my feelings with this film, and I guess kind of the 80s one, well, no, the 80s, they crammed a lot in there, so respect to them for that. It felt like there was so much explanation and so much exposition before things could actually move into motion. Like there was so much of that expository world building before we could understand what situation the characters were in, before we could care about them. And then that's just kind of, that's a discussion point for later. Alex, what are your thoughts? How does this movie do, just purely in terms of plot and how it conveys it?
So in terms of the plot, I mean, you also kind of touched on world, like the overall world as well. But in terms of the strict narrative, which pretty much follows Paul Atreides and his journey, and both films did, but with this one in particular, the 2021 film, I thought it did a great job. I thought, all echoing the thoughts that have already been expressed. It's especially compared to the '84 film. It's concise. It's clear. There is exposition in both films, but in this newer one, it's cleaner. It's less it's less expository. It provides exposition, but nowhere near as much and nowhere near as like consistently throughout the entire movie. And yeah, I think, and it also does. I mean, yeah, like I said at the beginning, my mind, I can't help but compare the two films every single time I watch either of them. But yeah, they do a lot of cool things differently um, because they do cover they do focus on the same character, Paul Atreides, and they do cover content from the same book. So they can't help but be compared in that way. But I find the differences between the two films and the way, like, in spite of the fact that they have to tell roughly the same story, I find the differences to be really interesting as well. But yeah, I think the new movie's plot is understandable. It's relatively interesting. It's not anything particularly special in the grand scheme of things, right? Archetypally speaking, the story of, the Messiah is, pretty old story. But yeah.
Yeah, no, and I think like good transition into the next thing I wanted to talk about was, since we have all seen the 80s film and then seen this one, I want to know, like, what is one specific thing you think the 80s film did better and one specific thing that you think this newer film did better, whether it be the portrayal of a character, a specific moment, something to do with plot. I'll go first. I haven't actually thought of my own. I just came up with the questions. I didn't think of my answers to them. But for my own, I feel like something that the 80s film did better. Well, like I said, the overall aesthetic I appreciated. I think visually the 80s film was a lot more interesting to look at, because this new film is just, it's very gray. I know there are some other colors, like there's bright, vibrant blue eyes, but it's very gray. Even like the floating guy in the new film wasn't nearly as much fun as the floating guy in the 80s film. They somehow took the most whimsical thing and made it not fun. So yeah, like I think the 80s film is more fun to look at. So there is that. For the new film, I think the box scene is directed in some ways better, but I don't think Timothée Chalamet is a very good actor, so I don't think he pulls it off the way that it should have been pulled off. So I think, in theory, just seeing somebody reacting to all the pain in the world is a great thing if your actor is good enough to pull it off, and I don't think he is. I think he's an actor who edits very well. Those are my thoughts on Timothée Chalamet. And also, I like what they did with the eyes, because it wasn't just like the pupils. They were just vibrant blue. Everything was blue in the eyes. And I thought that was really cool. Let's go opposite. Alex, how about you?
Yeah, something that each film did best or better than the other film, I guess. Yeah, for the 84 film, I think what it did better than the new film is it was a truer sci-fi. And what I mean by that, it had stronger fantasy elements. And I mean that specifically through the way it was produced, the production, the cinematography, the editing, the effects. I think all of that, the music, all of it came together to produce a very fantastical experience. And there were, I've used the term before when talking about the 84 Dune, and I believe it's been used to describe David Lynch as a director in general, but surreal comes to mind, where where there are these shots and images and moments that artistically and fantastically elevate the drama of whatever's going on, and not just but like the visual drama and everything. So I think whereas the new Dune, in that sense, to me, comes off much more modern, much more Game of Thrones, Lord of the Rings, much more, it's a fantasy world, but the magic's dead, the magic's rare, sparse, fleeting. So yeah, that's kind of the way I would the analogy I might give. But yeah, and then with the new Dune, something that I think it does better. What does it do better? I mean, it's we've already talked about it, but it is like, whether it's because it's more modern, and our modern sensibilities and expectations for cinema have changed, and or whether it's just the nature of the movie. I think the acting is probably better. And that's not to say that the 84 Dune had bad acting or bad actors. I don't think it did.
Sting.
Yeah, I mean, it did have Sting. Fade, yeah, it did have Sting. In great shape, I will add, but in great physical form. But yeah, no, I think just the style of films are different, so that it's not necessarily fair to compare the acting. But I think maybe it's just that maybe the point is more so maybe it's not an acting comparison. Maybe it's just the intelligibility of the plot. But like the new Dune definitely tells that's probably what I'd go with, a more intelligible story. It's whereas the old Dune tries to shove a whole book in a movie and jumps years and years and crams a whole bunch of things, and we go from the first third of the movie or half or a little over the half of Paul Atreides, the poor Duke's son, to we jump however many years to Paul Atreides. Are we doing spoilers?
Yeah, why not?
Okay, to Paul Atreides, the hand of God, the Messiah, the confirmed hand of God, and the terraforming.
The term is Kwisatz Haderach.
Kwisatz Haderach, yeah, that's the Bene Gesserit term, but it's not the Fremen prophecy term, which is I forget. But
this is what it was like when we were watching the movie. And then I was like, Alex, what is this?
Well, it was less you making statements that I was correcting, and it was more you just saying what, and me being like, well, if you caught that last sentence that was just spoken, this is what that sentence means, And it's true. Like that 84 film has so much. Again, it does have exposition. It does kind of explain things, but you have to sit and think about that one sentence for a bit of time to actually understand what's being said. But anyway.
Mary wants to know, how long is the 84 movie? I think it's all just under 3 hours.
I think they're both similar. It's about 2.5 hours. It's around that.
I want to
240, 238.
Oh, Jeanette's on it. Jeanette's on
it.
Yeah. Oh, it's actually short. It's on them. It's 217. But I feel like when I was a kid, I know it was a 2-tape set. I'm like, they only did that for long. Gone with the Wind was 2 tapes. Like, come on.
Well, actually, how long is Gone with the Wind? Oh, it's probably
3 hours.
It is? Okay.
Yeah.
We should do one of these for Gone with the Wind.
Yeah, you can do a retro.
Oh, I'll stay here until you do it.
Okay.
I'll just be right here.
Scarlett, that dress is beautiful. Thank you. I saw it in the window and I just had to have it. I know that's Carol Burnett, but it's genius. Oh, anyway, back to this movie, which is definitely not Gone with the Wind.
I wish I had a more interesting answer because like I know we already talked about the comprehensibility of the plot and narrative in the new film, and and that's what I was trying to get at with like the acting, like to bring up a new point. But yeah, like you can say it had better CGI, but
oh, apparently I'm assuming this is Gone with the Wind. 3 hours 56 minutes.
There you go.
That actually seems right, but it moves pretty quick. Well, it doesn't move quickly, but I'm engaged. Like The Godfather, long, in some points boring, but still you want to keep watching it. There were so many good 2-tape movies back in the day, like Sound of Music.
Charge you more.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, I don't remember many 2-tape movies. Like,
really?
Oh gosh. I know Titanic was.
And then it's always weird when like we move to DVDs, and then the point when you're used to having to switch the tape, it just moves straight through. Like in Titanic when he says, "Well, Mr. Ishmael, I think you'll get your headlines." And then you're like, ooh, dramatic pause, switch the tape. But now, nope, that pause is gone. The movie keeps going. Anyway, Jeanette, what do you think this movie does better? What do you think the other movie does better?
So here's my hot take. I don't think that the 1984 movie does anything better.
Ooh.
I just had a really deep, I know I have a deep love for it that comes from watching it at a young age, appreciating it for what it was, being able to understand it at a younger age. Like, I love all those things, and it's not a bad movie. I do think this movie is pretty much doing most things better. The costuming is better. It is less colorful, but that's because it's hyper realistic.
Yeah.
It's the same reason that like newer Star Wars sometimes can seem less colorful because it's just so hyper realistic now. I feel like you do lose some of that when you do that. But like, I think that this movie is technically, which is again the reason that it's being nominated for Oscars, and the other one was critically smashed. So like, I mean, arguably I have proof, but I mean, I still love the old one, and I think it's still a good movie. But I think it's a lot like Disney live action remakes. Both can exist and both can be awesome, or one can be good and one can be bad, and you can feel one way or the other, but they can both exist, and it's okay.
Yeah. No, and they definitely do both exist.
Exactly. See? Look, see, feelings.
Oh no, I spoiled Titanic for Bob.
What happens in the second tape?
Nothing.
I've never
Jack
watched-
and Rose
I
have
bought
lots of
the
kids.
set with no second tape.
That's it. Lots of kids for Jack and Rose. So something that I think is just interesting about the whole legacy of Dune, and I guess it's reemergence or it's Dune renaissance now with this movie that is probably going to inevitably happen, since new people like me have been exposed to it for better or worse, like being exposed to the spice melange, and then it just opens your mind, and it's like, now I know things now, many valuable things that I never knew before. Quoting Sondheim. What are our general thoughts about movies like this that are adapting things that are just so incredibly dense? Because when I think of Dune, like, automatically a lot of the issues that I have with this movie are the same issues that I hold with the Lord of the Rings films, which, to be fair, I haven't seen in probably 15 years. I need to give them a second chance. But my thing with Lord of the Rings is that when there's a mythology that is so dense that was introduced in a medium where you have the luxury of time because it's a book and you can write as much as you want, it can be as long as it needs to be. There can be appendixes. There can be like separate documents giving you the history. I feel like there's such a challenge with successfully adapting that into a filmic medium without putting yourself into a position where instead of making a movie, you're just explaining the rules of a universe as though to say, isn't that cool? Here it is. Instead of having some kind of payoff, some kind of emotional payoff to do with the characters that I would hope would be the heart of the original source material. Like, I think the Lord of the Rings films, from what I remember, even though I don't think I like them, but neither here nor there for right now, even though it is such a dense mythology, I think Peter Jackson, over the course of the three films and how it's spaced out, does a pretty good job at rooting everything in the characters and in those relationships that make the story worth telling. And that's something I kind of felt was lost in this film. Like, I didn't feel anything really for any of the characters or the relationships. But what are other people's thoughts? Like, how does this movie do at consolidating all of that stuff into one film? Like, do you feel like you were able to appreciate the characters and the relationships, or did it feel like it was getting convoluted with all the stuff? Because I felt like there was so much stuff. Anyone?
Well, I feel like you definitely get. I feel like you get to know the houses better than the individual characters. So maybe they're working from the outside in. Maybe we're going to get more like intimate relationships. I do feel like the people that they spend time making you care about are the ones that they kill, which again, they're not deciding that. It's already in the books. But like, I feel like you really feel like, oh, this Duncan character really loves this kid. And and this is also just the acting, but Oscar Isaac can make you care about him in about 5 minutes. Like, he has the puppy dog eyes, so like they really get you to care about him. I could give
with the puppy dog eyes.
Yes, I could give 2 hoots about Lady Jessica at this point, so they better start making me give a hoot about her. I care more about the Bene Gesserit more than I care about her as an individual. I care more about what happens to, I guess, like, the family's technically dead, but like, who gets control of this planet and what happens to the Fremen as a people, more than I care about necessarily Paul right now, if that makes any sense. Like, I know about the houses. While we're on that note, the character though, and I know you said that you like the older movies version of this character, but Stellan Skarsgård as the Baron, I just like
Oh, that was Stellan?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
That was
From
And
Mamma
I think
Mia?
Yeah, from the
And
film.
Okay.
I think I told you this maybe off air, but I think so. But Stellan Skarsgård's makeup in this movie is all well, not all. I don't want to say all. They touch it up with CGI, but it is heavily practical effects and makeup. So like that sells it to me. But then he acts through it, and he does like I don't know. That character, like I care a lot about that character, and he's a bad guy. So.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wrote down some of the names of the actors, not of all the actors of the '84 film, but like some of them that for those kinds of comparison. It was Kenneth McMillan was the actor's name who played Baron Vladimir Harkonnen, which is
and he played it almost like the uncle from Mary Poppins. I feel he was like
Uncle Albert.
a little more like goofy about it.
He was yeah.
Oh yeah.
Oh, even
yeah. But it, it worked, and that's just it. I think everything within the 1984 one works for the 1984 one, and it doesn't necessarily like age well, but like the Tron body shield, that's something the new one's doing better than the old one. Maybe that's where my Tron comparison comes from, like latent connection, because that thing definitely, that body armor looks very Tron. But I don't know. I think that they're getting us to care about characters and killing them, which maybe that's good. Maybe that's because if you kill a character I'm supposed to care about and I don't, that's a problem. I still have time to care about the people that are here.
Mary agrees with you. All the characters got dead.
They got dead.
Also, Mary wants more witches.
See, like the Bene Gesserit are like, ooh, like this is very nice and spooky, and like they've done a great job. The costuming sells it. It's awesome.
Yeah. No, and like, I mean, you made the point too earlier about how, how you feel like this movie would have done really well in the form of like a series, a mini series or whatever. And for me, my perspective is kind of like, why not both? Why not have it all? Like I'm not going to complain. Let's get movies, because I love movies. I like cinematic, like 2 hour, 3 hour, contained experiences or trilogies of films. I love miniseries. I love Game of Thrones type series. So give it to me all, as long as it's a universe that I'm interested in, and it's art that is, that is good, by objective, subjective standards, then, that I'm not going to complain if I have, multiple Dune mediums. But yeah, on the topic of, I guess, what we're talking about, the characters and whether we care about them.
Do you think the movie, well, that kind of as an extension of, do you think the movie is successful at taking such a dense piece and then adapting it for a film in a way that makes the story effective? With, I guess, kind of a focus on, do you think the characters are there for you?
Yeah. So yeah, I think we can definitely, and also side note, like I'm actually somebody, like I really have a lot to say and a lot of fondness about the '84 film, but I don't necessarily think it is a good film, from a more technical or, quote unquote objective perspective. It's something that I really enjoy and appreciate. But yeah, I might not be the first to claim that it's actually a good movie. But yeah, no, this new Dune, I think the other problem with kind of assessing how well it condenses its material is that I'm not an expert on the source material, right? Having not read the books, I couldn't comment on that, but just the impression I get from the exposition that they do give and the world that they do try to build, my impression is that it does a good job at, for me, it did a good job at conveying the like smaller narrative of Paul Atreides and his place in this larger world. It didn't do a great job for me in creating the world. Like, it still had great production and design, but, and again, this is my bias to the '84 film, I I felt the movie very much was sort of purposefully containing itself, whereas the 84 film, not a good thing necessarily, but it kind of, it just blasted everything, both visually, production wise. So you had this, to me, everything was believable and interesting to look at and wonder about. Oh, what is that? We know the third stage navigators. Why are they third stage? Why is he floating in a gas tank? Why is he breathing red things? Why is he shooting a light beam out of his mouth when they fold space? All of these interesting things to think about, but they're things that I believed. I didn't know what was going on, but when I watch it every time, I believe that it's there for a reason, even if I don't understand what the reason is. Whereas this new movie, it didn't feel like it was putting a lot of effort in creating that world for us. It was putting more effort, and probably rightfully so. In fact, I would argue rightfully so. It was intentionally focusing on telling us the story of Paul Atreides, and the House Atreides, but specifically Paul Atreides. So we didn't need to learn about a bunch of stuff or be intrigued by the greater world and the Landsrat and the struggle of the houses and the relationship of the spice, the specifics of how the spice allows space travel, and how the spice specifically expands the consciousness of the various people who consume it. And the mentats weren't even touched on in the new movie. The human computers who take their own, I don't know if it's spice, it's called its own thing, and they take their own drug that makes them good at math.
Yeah. I feel like that might have been
drug.
that, in the space-time travel might have actually been a lack of exposition. They just say that interstellar travel is not possible without it, and then there's mentats, and I would have appreciated, that's a chance for world building, and I'm like,
and I'm with you there.
Just a sentence, just a nod, something to explain something, and a slight lack of exposition in that way.
Yeah, and that's exactly, and I'm with you. I love world building. I love getting even at the expense of narrative and characters. I can fall in love with just a universe and lore, and so and that's something that I think this new movie didn't really focus on, which is fine. I think it was intentional, but it for my for what pleases me in these kinds of movies, and certainly for my expectations based on the 84 film, that's what let me down. But focusing in on that question of does this movie do a good job at containing all that source material, or giving us a comprehensible amount without it feeling like we're either losing something or it's artificially constricted? I think it does, especially for somebody who doesn't have a background in Dune. I think it doesn't. I would imagine that it does a good job of telling you, here's the story, here are some of the details, of the world, but don't worry about that. Worry about Paul. And then to just comment a little bit on the characters, for me, I thought that it did an okay job for me personally of making the characters feel, make me care about them. I'm not going to say interesting, because Duncan Idaho, what's interesting about him? He's the archetypal, honorable, heroic soldier. It's great, but I think Jason Momoa does he's charismatic enough. I don't think he's a particularly good actor. But he, I didn't mind him in the role. Timothy Chalamet, is that his name?
Yeah.
I don't think he's an exceptional actor. I don't think he's a bad actor personally. I have other qualms with the box, more of a director type thing with that scene. But I also, after watching the movie a couple more times, I've changed my tune. I've altered my initial impressions. But yeah, I think personally, I cared about Duke Leto Atreides, about Paul's father, about Oscar Isaac. I cared about Stilgar and the Fremen that we meet at the very end of the movie, and
you want to talk about a role that Javier Bardem actually deserves to be nominated for, maybe.
Wait, Javier's in this movie?
Yeah.
Which one was he?
He's Stilgar.
He's the guy.
leader of the group of Fremen.
Yeah, the leader of the Fremen. Who he's the guy who comes in sort of at the halfway
He
point of the
spits
movie
on the
when they
desk.
first get to
Oh.
Arrakis. Yeah, he
Huh.
spits on the desk, and they all want to kill him, and Duncan's like, hold on.
Alex, I don't want to spoil any past videos if you didn't watch it, but none of us cared for him as Ricky Ricardo.
No.
who is he? Who's Ricky? Who?
Javier Bardem played Ricky Ricardo in Being the Ricardos.
Yeah,
Okay,
Lucille
I
Ball's-
didn't consume that media, but I've only seen Javier Bardem in films like in No Country for Old Men and Vicky
scary
Cristina
roles.
Barcelona.
Yeah.
No, Vicky Cristina Barcelona is not scary. He's
Was he not scary in that?
No, but he's
suave.
really good in that movie.
Yeah.
I just think he's scary in everything.
Yeah. So I've only seen him in good stuff, but I believe that I believe everybody fails.
Side panel, he did do really great in this movie. I will say, on the note of acting, if we're going to touch on that,
Let's do it.
Felt a lot of times just the way he was being shot and the things he was doing, but particularly when he's like walking across the Scottish rock water fields. I don't know. Timothy, if they were just now starting to shoot the newer set of Star Wars movies, if they were just starting to shoot those, he would be Kylo Ren.
Oh, he had like a menacing walk, like
very
a villainous
Kylo.
walk. Mm-hmm.
I don't know about menacing. More so just however Adam Driver's delivering it. I don't know. But like he has
engaging.
Timothy Chalamet in this movie has a number of scenes that for lack of a more sophisticated, like longer word, he comes across as purely emo. It's very you're Spinning Jesuits made me a freak. And I'm like, oh my God, come on. This is a little melodramatic. Come on. Like
that was a cool moment. He uses the voice and everything
Great.
there.
It was great.
Yeah, it was the wrong pitch.
It felt like he was in his bedroom and his mom was in there talking to him. He's like, you made me a freak. Get out of here. Like, I don't know. It just came across very like, maybe it's his face.
That's funny. That's funny because that's exactly the criticism I had of Adam Driver in like the Force Awakens or whatever.
Oh, but he's supposed to be that.
I love it. But that's because I like that in my Star Wars. I like a little soap opera.
Like that angst.
Soap opera to go with the space opera, yes.
Yeah, that was there in the originals, and that's my daughter asked me, she's like, "What is Dune?" And I was like, "It's like Star Wars without the comedic relief." I mean, you don't get any of the warm and fuzzies or any of the lighthearted, like there's none of that. There's none of that in Dune.
There is a lot of comedy though. There are a lot of like in the 84 film, there are a lot of like hidden nuggets. Like there's the first scene when the Baron's doctor, when he's extracting the pus or whatever from his boils, he has a line where it's like it's a pure not Doctor Who, Dr. Seuss rhyme. He says something like, I don't know, he rhymes Pete with neat. He has this two sentences that he's just saying this random rhyming, pattern for some reason. And then he starts going into poetry. He's like, Baron, your pustules are like love to me. Your diseases I will care for all eternity, and like stuff like this. And anyway, there's little tidbits like that. There's Raban ripping the snout of a cow and just starts eating it. And just random stuff in Geedy Prime in the Harkonnen homeworld. But anyway.
Got distracted by everything you just said. So yeah, just going to the comments here. It's every 15-year-old boy ever. Lots of whiny Luke Skywalker moments. So yeah, is Paul actually only supposed to be 15?
Is he?
Is that the situation with him?
I don't know. Apparently in the books he is. Yeah, according to Aubrey. Yeah, his age is not referenced in the 84 film or in this film.
I feel like Timmy could maybe come off as 15. Definitely not Kyle MacLachlan.
Yeah, Kyle
80s.
Still was youthful looking, but he, the youngest I would put him at is like mid-20s.
22.
Yeah.
That's generous, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, like how do we've kind of touched on, but how does everyone just feel about Paul as the leading character. Like, are we with him on this hero's journey? Because I'm certainly not. And I don't know if it's how he's been portrayed in both of these films. Having had the story explained to me a little bit more by people who know the Dune, like Jessica's the character I find the most interesting, even though I don't think she's been portrayed as the most interesting in either of the films. But just the whole issue of her like defying the Bene Gesserit's years of genetic breeding just so that she could give Oscar Isaac a son because she was in love with him. I'm like, that's interesting. Like, I would watch an entire thing about that. Like, give me the Jessica prequel, because that's a character that I would follow. Whereas I don't find Paul's character super engaging. Maybe it's just me, and it could be the performances, but just something about how it feels like he's not making a ton of decisions. He's just kind of following the God-given path, which I guess is kind of the point, but I don't find it that fun to watch. What does everyone else think about Paul and his journey as a character?
Yeah. No, I think I do like, you know, you did hit it kind of on the head in the sense of, I think that is by design to an extent. Paul Atreides, you know, is the Messiah, is the chosen one, and it's kind of reminds me a bit of Jesus Christ Superstar, in that, you know, the Jesus Christ Superstar isn't really like, you know, it's not really about Jesus, it's about Judas. True. You know, and so in that sense, where you think like Jesus, like, why not? Jesus is the chosen one. He's the Messiah. He's the God's son and all powerful and blah, blah, blah. It's like you would think on some level that he should be the focus or the most interesting or whatever. But, you know, reality is that those circumstances don't really produce the most interesting character or story.
And that could be it. Like, this movie is missing a Judas perspective that Jesus Christ Superstar gives us.
Yeah, and although maybe like I'm not sure that I interpret it as missing though, as much as I interpret it as like, for me, I guess the way my solution for that is that the world around Paul is sort of the compensation. It's more interesting, and so I'm interested to see how Paul affects the world around him and how the people around Paul are affected by him, and including his mother Jessica. Also, there is between the two films, especially, like there are differences between the way Jessica is portrayed. In the 84 film, Jessica is portrayed more so as this sort of, you know, this Bene Gesserit person who defied her orders and gave Duke Leto a son out of love, whereas the 2021 film has that element, but it also has very clearly the side of her intentionally trying to produce the Kwisatz Haderach. So it's not a clear, which is still interesting. It's very interesting because it's like, and she's still like, she's very much this character, which I think the new movie does better than the old movie, creates more of a three-dimensional character where she does have those elements of being a mother, being, you know, fearful for the safety of her son, being in love with the Duke, but also being the Bene Gesserit, you know, witch, and having these plans and schemes and prophecies and destinies in her head that she's also working towards, and kind of that fight. I think you kind of see that fight in her character and in the acting throughout the movie. Yeah. Any thoughts from you, Jeanette, on Paul, the Messiah?
Paul, I feel like, like stuff is just kind of falling into his lap. So like, it's not a hero's journey in like a Herculean way where he's having to like fight for it. He is fighting, but that's not necessarily what he's fighting for, is for all of the things that lead him to be the, you know, the one. Like it's not, and it's almost like it's not even his goal. Like he's not super interested in it. It's almost like he's bothered by it. So yeah, I don't know. I mean, he's definitely not, again, like I said, he's not exactly the one that I give the most cares about. I actually, and this is true from when I was a kid, when I watched the original one, the people that I always end up caring the most about are the Fremen. Like I just want their story, and I just want to follow them and see them either get their planet back or work in harmony with whoever is harvesting or whatever, you know, like that's like, and again, I don't know the story of anything past the first book. a little bit. I do know a little bit of the second book, and I regret not watching whatever iteration of that it was that McAvoy plays that he's in. I got to watch that because I just found out about that. Yeah, James
Look that
McAvoy
up.
is in
Is it a Dune
some
iteration?
iteration.
I don't
Yeah,
think
he's
so.
in
Maybe.
like whatever they made about the second book. So I don't know what that is, but I just saw something about it today, and I was like, "Oh, I'm gonna have to watch that." But yeah, I don't
Children
remember
of
why I
Dune.
brought that.
Yeah,
There
Children
you
of Dune is
go.
the miniseries, but
Oh.
that was like I if he was in that, that was before he was like a known
Yeah, he looks
actor.
very young in it. He
Yeah,
looks
yeah.
He's
No, I
very
saw
Leto
young.
that.
to Atreides.
Yeah, he plays like he's the Leto 2 or whatever.
Is
Yeah,
that
yeah,
Paul's
Junior.
son? Leto 2?
Yeah. Yeah.
Oh.
So yeah, I don't know. And it's, it's the science fiction element. It's their eyes. It's the fact that they live on the planet and they're adapted to it. Like I find that all very
Yeah.
interesting.
Well, they're also like the the classic underdogs, right? Like that's
Yeah, they are the oppressed people. Yeah, like it's
Yeah.
and again, like you talked about archetypes. There's the Messiah story. There's the story of oppressed peoples. There's if we're on the Game of Thrones thing, the fighting of the houses. Like there's all these different tropes that if you like that, it'll draw you in and you'll follow that storyline. You want to see that.
On the note of the Fremen and this new movie, something that was interesting is the new movie starts off with Zendaya narrating with Chani is her character's name, and yeah, it starts off with Chani kind of narrating from that perspective, briefly overviewing the Fremen's experience of being oppressed by the Harkonnens on Arrakis and the experience of longing for salvation, paradise, and prophecy. And it was and for me in particular, it's interesting to contrast that with the original '84 Dune, which was opens with the princess Iranu, I don't remember, the princess of the Emperor of the Universe, giving us everything we need to know,
which feels very never-ending story. Like this queen, like speaking to the camera with floating space around her.
I think I even said, "Is this the childlike empress?" when she showed up.
I wish it were.
Yeah, I liked when she disappeared and then came back. It was like, and one more thing I forgot.
Yeah, there's literally she fades out, and then she's like, "Oh, and one more thing," and then fades back.
It's a little never-ending story. It's a little Star Wars Christmas special.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh!
But no, that I think just to kind of put a cap on that point that I was trying to make was just that this new movie, I think that's another piece of evidence that shows this movie is trying to, is more effective or trying to be more effective at getting us to care about the actual people, as opposed to trying to get us to wrap our minds around and care about like the conflict, in the context of the greater universe and the empire or imperium and all that kind of stuff. It's like, which is again, if you're, looking back at the '84 film, even though they're telling the same stories, it's very much within this context of like, all of this is happening, understand, be with the sleep. Anyway, let the sleeper must awaken. But yeah, this new movie, I think that's sort of an example that the way the movie is introduced, where we hear Zendaya, we hear this story of the Fremen, and then even the way Paul's introduced and Paul's, at the breakfast table with his mother and where this movie tries and specifically tries to focus on, I think, the characters and their personal journey, certainly when compared to the '84 film.
Yeah. Let's go to the comments here. See, I wish I knew enough about Dune to make this connection between the Duncans, because I feel like I could at least make something up. But Bagpipes are bagpipes. So there you go.
On the, thank you for bringing up the score, Bobby, because I do think it's interesting. It's one of the awards that I think it should win when looking at the competitors in the category. The only
Who else
other
is
movie.
up for score?
So I have it.
Oh, I have it. Encanto and Don't Look Up, apparently.
Yes. So we had looked at that one, and I remember saying like the only ones that deserve to get there we go. To get that is Dune or Encanto. Like Encanto. Sorry, my daughter would kill me. Okay. She's been correcting me about that. But then it's Dune. Basically, what I'm getting at is it's not nominated for any acting awards. It's nominated for 10 things, and none of them are acting. I don't remember. Let me see if directing. No, and none of them and not directing. So I think that kind of speaks volumes about what we're talking about. Like, we're like, this is a good movie. It's a well-made movie. It's a great movie. It does all these things really well. And we're like, but I don't know about I just don't know. Like, I don't feel anything. And it's like, because the directing and the acting are the things that are not lacking. Yeah. It's like it's there, but it's not. It's like you showed up and you understood the assignment, but you didn't do the extra credit. And
that is that's perfect way
how
to say
I feel about it, because it does deserve to win costume. It does deserve to win score. It does deserve to win potentially adapted screenplay. We'll see who else is in that category real quick, because that could be
Lost Daughter and Drive My Car, which I haven't seen either of those.
Well, I can tell you, Power of the Dog can eat it, because I don't want to get. I don't know Drive My Car. I haven't seen Coda, and I don't know Lost Daughter. So, but it is written. Oh, Lost Daughters by Maggie Gyllenhaal. I'd be interested to see what she came out with. But I would be fine if this won that. I would be happy if it won all the things it's up for, because it's not up for the things that I would argue.
Yeah. Fair. Now, I do have thoughts about certain things that I think deserve to win over this movie in some of these categories, but I'm going to save that for 2 weeks from now when we go through the entire list and give our picks. Yes. But actually, no, before we get to that, we have some cool conversations happening here in the comments that I think we can chime in on a little bit. Right here, he didn't understand the guy wanting to fight Paul to the death. Then he's dead and people have to carry his dead body around. Counterintuitive. Which apparently it's something from the book and having to do with Fremen culture.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We're going to get a ton more of that in the next movie. At least I have faith that we will, because that's kind of where we're going, right? That's the whole... And that's why we broke it into multiple movies. So I'm willing to wait. I was a little ticked. Like, the whole movie, I'm sitting there and I kept kind of being like, so we're going to get to some Fremen stuff, right? Like, we're going to get to go see them, right? Where are they at? Like, when is that happening?
Yeah.
Is the second movie going to be the Zendaya movie? Is that the vibe that we're getting? That they lay all this groundwork so that they can explore her character and the Fremen more in the second one?
Well, if it follows, yeah. Oh, sure. Yeah. No, maybe. Yeah. Yeah. I don't know. Yeah. On Zendaya, I don't know how I feel about Zendaya, because I really liked her early work in like in the when I first saw her in
Disney Channel.
No, in the first when I first saw her in the first Spider-Man, and then after that she became like in the first Tom Holland Spider-Man movie, and then after that she became super popular. I was kind of like kind of disenchanted, not because of anything she did, just kind of like that I don't want to hop on the Zendaya bandwagon, so I'm just gonna okay, she's good, but I don't know how I feel. But no, I do really. I thought she did a great job in her 5 minutes.
In her 7 minutes, yes.
I know, right?
But no, if it follows the, certainly if it follows I think it's going to tell Paul's story, right? And Shawnee, I don't believe. Again, having not read the books, I can't speak definitively, but I don't think I don't think part 2 is going to be the Chani story. I think it's going to be, at most the Chani and Paul story, and then more likely than that, it'll be just Paul's, becoming the, fulfilling his destiny to some extent, fulfilling his the prophecy and becoming the Messiah. But yeah, forget what I was going to say before.
Anybody
Yeah.
else find it really funny that the only two, like, there's Paul and Jessica, and then everybody else has like a super sci-fi name, like Paul
I
and
didn't think of
Jessica,
that.
and
Yeah.
then everybody else has super cool
Leto.
names.
I mean, Duncan's not super sci-fi, but
I guess it's not
kinda-
super.
Yeah.
It's like
Yeah.
different, and
Yeah,
like
yeah.
especially
And
when you put it
then-
together with Idaho, like that sounds
Yeah,
really
and there's Dr.
spiffy
Yui
and
and
space shooter like.
Jessica's
Yeah.
just so interesting because it's such a classical name. Because I think
Yeah.
I'm almost positive Shakespeare invented that name. So
Jessica?
thank you, Shakespeare. And
Interesting.
just the juxtaposition between, if that is the case, a Shakespearean name being coupled with something that takes place in like the year 10,000 something something.
10,191.
That's the one. Shakespeare, the legacy just continues. But not like, I think there's something cool about just linking it to, even though it is so far in the future. It's kind of the Star Wars thing of long time ago in a galaxy far away. Whereas like it is future kind of melded with classical elements and like something so timeless with the past, which I feel is more in theory than what I saw in practice.
Yeah, that speaks to, I think, like, certainly it speaks a lot to the 84 film, right?
Mhm.
The 84 film did a bunch of, like, what's his name? Gurney and his dog. If you remember Sir...
Oh, yes!
Patrick Stewart. He wasn't Sir Patrick Stewart at the time.
Yes.
Patrick Stewart, you know, when he once the Harkonnens and the Sardaukar attack, he's charging into battle with the pug
dog.
or whatever. but yeah, I think, again, having not read the books, I can't speak to them definitively, but the 84 film specifically, and the Children of Dune, but the 84 film specifically does kind of, it reminds me of those classic sci-fi novels that, like, you know, a lot like Isaac Asimov is like, I read a lot of his books, and those classic sci-fi writers, they were maybe, I don't know if constrained or limited, I don't know if that's the right term, but like they were creating these futuristic worlds that took place thousands and hundreds of thousands and however many, you know, years in the future, but they're, you know, they weren't, it's not like they were creating, like they weren't creating, you know, cell phones. They didn't imagine technologies that actually were occurring. So it's kind of like Star Wars or Dune, where everybody's still using these very basic, you know, like screens with, you know, very basic visual graphics, like these, you know, and black and green colors, and right. And Star Wars, the starships are still using handles and big red and white buttons. And it's like, wouldn't you get, like, in our few, like, we know we're on the, you know, we're thinking about like artificial intelligence becoming a thing in sometime in the next 50 years, maybe, you know. And it's like, well, once that potentially comes a thing, like, we're probably not going to have any buttons. We'll just have an automated system that we just interact with, you know, orally or with our Neuralink chips or whatever, right? So it's like, my point being that I think one explanation for the sort of the elements of what we're familiar with still being present in these stories that take place, you know, in the year 10,000, is partly a product of you know, the author's imagination, and kind of, you know, not really seeing much difference, you know, in 10,000 years or whatever, not being able to imagine what reality is going to be like in 10,000 years. And that's not like a criticism. I think that's just like a, you know, it's a universal human limitation. I don't think we're good at actually anticipating what the next 100 or 1,000 years would actually look like, right? I don't think the people 100 years ago, and I think that's by virtue of sci-fi authors, right? You read sci-fi books written in the past 50 years, you know, they predict some things, but technology, not really. You know, they don't really predict the technology that ends up happening.
I feel like that was another thing that they did not do a good job of explaining, and I don't even know, I think they did explain it better in the 84 one, is that the reason that there's no like AI and no massive technology is because they had that war, and they got rid of all of the, what they call thinking machines. They got rid of all of that went away in a war that happened like hundreds of years before what we're watching right now. Or maybe
I don't know if that's
years.
Referenced in the 84 film. It might be, because they, like I said, they have one line.
They do tackle it. Yeah, exactly. They tackle it like in one little blip, but it's still not even really in the books, and like when I was reading this, like I didn't read the synopsis of all the books individually. I just read how what the story that they tell overall. But his son, I guess later, right after he died, he had some like massive outlining and stuff for a prequel about that war, and I forget what it's called. It's literally like the Buttarians or something, and it's spelled like Butt-Arians or something. It's really ridiculous. I don't know I don't know why he came up with that name, but it's the name of the war that happened like before all this happens. And so, but then I thought that was a little confusing too, because like, what's the weird little floaty things? That's not awesome, crazy technology. That's analog. That's not analog. What is that? Like,
yeah, what weird floaty things?
You mean like the dark thing?
The thing that comes into the room with him, and then it's walking with the Bene Gesserits when they're there. It's like that glowing, floaty. It kind of looks like the thing from Eon Flux. I don't know, but
so the thing that almost that tries to
looks
kill
like a
Paul?
little lantern. No, not the Hunter Seekers, but it looks like a little lantern.
I remember the lantern.
Yeah. So I don't know. I was like, well, that's weird because everything else kind of is explained. Like you'll notice their planes run on like almost like dragonfly helicopter.
Yeah, ornithopters. Like,
yeah. So I mean, that is cool. I thought one thing that this movie really did take from the other, and from really the artwork that has accompanied Frank Herbert's work all these years, is that they did that really good thing of making everything look super monolithic. Like everything has large flat surfaces. Everything is like almost like unnecessarily large, because that's similar to like Egyptian building, which that fits in our human mind when we're looking at a desert setting, right?
Yeah.
And then you look at their palace in what really was Scotland where they filmed, and it looks like it fits in a dank, cold, wet setting, so like I felt like they did a good job of scene setting and also carrying that classic look, especially when they would show the Arrakis palace with the date palms outside. I thought that scene, because they used such beautiful matte paintings in the original one, to bring that in with CGI and to still get that feeling,
I taught Alex what matte paintings were when we were watching the movie, because he thought they were actual human extras. And then,
well, okay, I mean, it's not. First off, it's not like I wasn't aware of filmic techniques,
I was like, I'm pretty sure you know what matte paintings.
But I didn't know specifically the term matte painting. So.
Oh no, but I like the channel paid off for the first time ever, because my Mary Poppins episode taught me how it actually worked. So I was able to like say, this is a painting on glass. This is the actual action. I felt smart.
No, you were. And
I was grasping at straws to feel like I understood something whilst watching that movie. So it's all I had. But yeah,
that's okay. A scene that I've always, all these years, thought was actual like shot scene in Star Wars. I forget which one, but I just recently found out it was a matte painting. I was like,
really?
Smokes. Yeah, it's like one of the scenes of the stormtroopers in the launch area, like the one that's actually in Rise of the Resistance, that is actually a physical thing now. It's like it was that scene in the movie, and I was like, I didn't know that.
So cool. Oh, movies. Fun. Okay, let's go to the game.
Okay, hold on. One final note. One thing I need to get
we can talk about the movie after the game too. But yeah, say your thing. Don't worry.
Well, I'll just say my thing now.
Yeah.
So a nitpick that I have with the new movie is the way they handle the shields. So something that was very cool, in spite of the blocky Tron aesthetic of the 84 film with the personal shields, and even like all the shields, I thought the shield technology from then was very cool, and the cool and just it wasn't anything complicated. It was just this idea: the slow blade penetrates the shield, which it was this cool feature of the world where they had this shield technology that prevented fast-moving projectiles or whatever fast-moving objects from coming through them. But if you moved slowly, you could penetrate the shield. And so the scene in the old movie where Gurney and Paul fight, they demonstrate that. They fight, and then Paul slowly goes through, and then they have the exact same sort of dialogue where Paul says, "I have you." Gurney says, "Well done, but look down. We would have joined each other in death." Anyway, and they both say the line. They both have the line, "The slow blade penetrates the shield," in that scene. In the new Dune, that rule is consistent up until the fighting starts. When the fighting starts, so they show you when the Gurney and Paul fight, the only time that the blades penetrate the shield is when they're moving slowly. When the fighting starts, the bombs are shown, like so the Duke, when he gets shot with that, by Yui, and he gets poisoned, it shows the dart slowly moving through the shield and breaking through. When the bombs are dropped by the Harkonnens, it shows these bombs that land on top of the shield and then slowly kind of drill through the shield and then land and then touch the physical ship and blow up. But when the actual soldiers fight, there's no such thing. They're just slashing at each other, and you just start and you see these full-on slashes, which we already established in the fight with Paul and Gurney, that those kinds of attacks would not penetrate the shield. And all of a sudden, they're penetrating the shield. And when Duncan's fighting his last stand, he's just penetrating the shield with the fast blade, not the slow blade. The slow blade's not penetrating the shield. All the blades are penetrating the shield. So that's something that is a nitpick that I feel very passionate about, because it takes away a feature that it's like, it's a cool feature. It's like, why have a line in there, / why not just respect the slow blade penetrating the shield? It's fun. It's a fun, interesting
it's a
aspect
rule
of
the
world.
universe. Once you give me a rule, like you said, you better follow it.
Follow the rule.
Now I know it.
yeah. Watch, everybody, whenever you get the chance, rewatch the Dune movie. Find out, count all the times that the slow blade or that the fast blade penetrates the shield, and join me in the movement. Hashtag, the slow blade does not penetrate the shield. That's what the hashtag is. Anyway, onto the game.
I want to hear your thoughts on the box, though.
Oh, sure. So yeah, initially when I watched through Dune, I got to the scene where the Reverend Mother, she has her own name, so three names, Reverend Mother, blah blah blah.
The bringer of the box of pain.
Yeah, she tells Paul to put his hand in the box of pain. I came away from that scene describing it as like a scene where we get a shot of Timothée Chalamet showing us, like through his acting, how painful the box, putting his hand in the box is. And ultimately that I found that like a letdown, especially because I had these decade-old memories of the David Lynch version, which had flames and shots of a hand burning and melting and bubbling and boiling, kind of cutting between those images and Kyle MacLachlan with a red tensed up face and really melodramatically showing us this pain, contrasting that to Timothée Chalamet, like, oh, that's painful, it's kind of hard for me to control.
But his eyes were tearing up. Didn't you see the tears in his eyes?
Yeah, there are some, a certain threshold of pain, the tears, you're beyond tears at a certain point. You just got to get to that red face, veins bulging out of you, and then I got to see anyway. So yeah, so now again, after watching the movie, the new Dune, 2 more times since my initial theater visit, I've become more forgiving with that scene and the other scenes that I compare with the 84 film. But yeah, it still remains that the 84 film specifically, like those, not just that, but even like, again, it's fantastical, it's melodramatic, it's more heightened. And these are different styles. These are stylistic differences, in my opinion, that aren't necessarily like useful to compare. But yeah, the 84 film, for these sort of key moments, the hand in the box specifically, with the music paired with the imagery of it, it creates a more impactful scene. Whereas this new movie, it's not necessarily lame, and on its own, I think on its own, when not compared to the 84 film, it's it's fine, and it does something different. The 84 film does all of this, shows us flame and a hand boiling and bubbling and melting and burning, and the climax is Paul Atreides, is Kyle MacLachlan all tensed up, yelling the pain, and the Reverend Mother being like enough, simultaneously. Whereas the new movie, it shows us before the end, Paul, the music changes into this epic sort of hero conquered the obstacle, and Timothée Chalamet, starts staring down the Reverend Mother and showing her that he's overcome the pain, that he's conquered the test.
Yeah.
And this goes on for, 10 seconds. And then the Reverend Mother, calls it off. So they're different scenes, and they're showcasing things differently, and they're stylistically totally different. But yeah, I do, in that initial impression, especially to come from the 84 Dune, to go and to from that moment in the 84 movie, in the 2021 movie version, it's super different, and it is lackluster in a lot of ways. It just feels less impactful. It's less interesting overall. But again, having said all that, I don't objectively think that scene is bad, or that comparison should reflect on its standing.
Matt, you might get this. I think the lady that sings the whole time over the score, that one, yeah. I think it's the same lady that does the opening of Harmonious. If you've watched the video of
I haven't seen anything of Harmonious.
Oh yeah, the beginning of it is a big like the same weird chanty singing.
There are a lot of vocalizations in a lot of
that's
a lot of
movies.
There's weird guttural chamber singing, and
they're using the voice. That's it.
I love it. I will say my favorite line in this whole movie is at the end of that scene, and the Reverend Mother or whatever is walking away, and she goes, "Farewell, young human. I hope you live." And I'm like, I'm gonna start saying that as goodbye to everybody. Goodbye, young human. I hope you live.
I think that's a great.
Why that killed me.
That was a great thing about the '80s film. I think it was more quotable, tongue-in-cheek quotable, which is something that I just enjoy about anything.
They do share a lot of the same quotes, but the '80s film just is more expositional.
It's more quotable, though.
It has, and the moments are more quotable.
The spice is the worm is the spice.
Well, we haven't gotten to that spoiler.
Oh, sorry.
The worm is not the spice yet. The spice is not the worm yet.
You're right. It's not. That's not a thing. Okay, to the game. So I've decided to call this game. There were a couple options for naming it, but I've decided on this. It's called Dune or Dune Not.
Dune or Dune Not.
All right, I'm ready.
Okay.
I will tell you.
All right. So get your writing utensil and your paper ready. Now, as per most games, you just have to write on one piece of paper Dune. Well, not most games. This is very specific to this game. But you have to have two pieces of paper that say two different things. One will say Dune. One will say Dune Not. Okay. Now, I'm going to throw a word on the screen, which is either from the Duneverse, or it's a nonsense word that I either pulled from the dictionary or made up on my own.
This is going to be hard.
If you think it's a word that exists in the Duneverse, which, not just this movie, but all of the Duneverse, then you hold up your paper that says Dune. If you think it's a word that is not from the Duneverse and a word that I either made up or pulled from the internet, hold up Dune Not.
Oh, gosh. All right.
Yes. All right. Oh, wait. I have to check. Did I get the bonus question lined up? Okay, I'll figure that out later. Okay.
Hopefully, are you just going to be reading them and pronouncing them however you want? Or are you going to be showing us?
I'm going to be putting them on screen because most of these I can't pronounce. Okay, good. And feel free to play along in the chat as well. Here we go. And I'm just
saying yes or no, Dune or do not. Right.
Yeah, but you have to hold it up.
It has to be
Dune. Okay.
That's how you lock in your answer. Yeah.
All right.
Dune or do not. I also am not really able to give you definitions for what any of these words are. Both
Use it in a sentence.
Out of the Duneverse. So here we go. The first one. This. Othyaim. Othiem. Dune or do not? Othiem. I encourage everyone to play along in the chat as well.
I have no idea. I'm going to do this.
All right. Ooh, one of you got a point. And it's Alex Titei.
Yes.
I can't
It
remember what it
sounds
is.
vaguely religious, which I know Dune has a lot of religious themes. So I said yes.
Well done. Okay, next. Water Singer.
Oh,
Dune or do
interesting.
not?
Interesting.
Mm-hmm.
Jeez, this is a tricky one. If I'm
Okay, we got a do not. One of you got it. And it's Jeanette. That's not a thing.
Okay.
I made
well,
that
it could
up.
be a thing, and I could
That's
give you
not a
reasons
thing.
why, but
Well,
it's
why
a
is
tricky
it?
one.
There we go. There we go.
All right, next. Logno.
Let's
Log
change it
yes
up.
or
Let's
log
change it
no?
up.
I could have called this game log yes or log no.
I feel like I'm answering this too many times.
Oh, you're both wrong. It's a Dune. It's a
All
Dune.
right. Yeah, it could.
It's a Dooney Dune.
Hey,
Dooney
Dune if
Dune.
you Dune if you do not.
Well done. Acidulate.
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 Yeah, sure.
I'm gonna.
I
Acidulate.
feel like that's just a real word to acidulate. You know, right, guys?
I
Acidulate.
feel like I'm not answering Dune for any of these. That sounds like a real word.
I don't know. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, you're both right. It's not a thing from Dune.
Yeah, good,
it's a
good.
thing from real life. Where
Sounds
you like move acid
like
into
to
a thing.
acidify, yeah.
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 Okay, next. Blorgo.
I mean, there was that two answers
just-
ago that was like the same thing. So, sure.
Logno and no, it's a do not.
Oh,
All right.
jeez.
Hey,
Come on.
At this point, I think we're tied, so this is good. We just keep answering the
It's
same.
Blorgo.
Blorgo.
Okay, next. Fish speaker.
Fish speaker. Fish speaker.
Fish speaker.
Hold on. It's going to give you the answer.
Yeah,
soon.
solidarity.
Dune.
No, it's a dune.
What?
Oh yeah,
The
fish
heck
water
is a fish
listener isn't,
speaker?
but fish speaker is.
What do you think inspired Water Singer?
Oh, singer.
I was
No,
like, if fish speaker can be a thing in the Duneverse, why not Water
Well,
Singer?
water's a very particular. Water's an iconic term in Dune. Water is what is both super valuable on Arrakis,
Mhm.
and literally, and water is also synonymous with life. With
I like how
blood.
you're arguing that my nonsense term made more sense in the Duneverse than the actual Dune terms.
I
and
mean,
that
I don't
just-
know what fish
That speaks a
speakers
lot
are.
about this source material, which is really the point of this
Again,
game.
I don't know what the context is of fish speaker. I only know the movies, and I don't remember any fish speakers.
Okay. Okay, next.
Tleolaxu. Tleolazu.
This sounds Navi.
It does, doesn't it?
This sounds very Navi. I'm going to say that it's Navi.
Oh, it's a dune.
Dang
It's
it.
a dune. It's a race of people that are able to biologically mimic any other living thing, is my understanding. So they don't take on all of the immediate life memories, but they can take on, no, they're biological clones. So if somebody dies, they can make a biological clone of the dead thing that doesn't have the memories, but has all the mental capacities and physical capabilities that the person had, is my understanding.
I'm going to
I believe it.
that's from the
Dune
books
has-
and not the movies. Yeah.
Yeah. The Imperium is in the entire known universe or whatever. So
Loving these comments. I wish I could.
Yes, please.
Yes, Mary, exactly.
I was going to say the same
Yes.
thing, Gary.
When it was described to me, that was the first thing I thought too. I was
That's
like, wait, from
exactly what I
Captain
thought.
Marvel? Sure. Okay, next. Face dancer.
This is a family show, Matt. This is a family show.
sure.
Oh, one of you got it. It's Alex Titei.
Oh, jeez.
I don't know what it is, but
Me
that's
neither.
it. There you go.
I mean, it
don't
sounds kind
know.
of similar to what you
Somebody
were
better
saying. It
find
sounds
out.
like a mimic type thing, but
All right, next. Gajion. Gajion.
Now I've answered
that
do
thing.
not so many times. I'm questioning, but I'm just gonna keep going with the
I
same
feel like
one.
this. I feel like Mary's comment was about face dancer, but we can also say that this sounds dirty.
Sure.
well, yeah, it's kind of dungeon-y.
Yeah.
At least, yeah, sure,
It's a do not. Very good.
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 I think it's a car term, actually. I think it's some kind of piston. Yeah, one of these I decided to just look up car terms, and I think that was the one. Yeah. And acidulate, I think, was a cooking term. Oh, yeah, I threw in a cooking term because I was like, maybe if I throw in an obscure cooking term, Jeanette will just know it. But I tried
I
to
know
like, pull a really
acidify, but it
yeah,
sounds
see,
like
that's what I
about
thought.
the
I was
same
like,
thing.
acidulate, that doesn't seem like the right word for what they're telling me it is. I think it's more cryptic, or not cryptic. I think it's more archaic, though, as opposed to a thing people say now. All right. And the final one of our regular round before we move on to the bonus round. Flurginate. Flurginate.
I'm gonna say Dune, and it's not gonna be Dune. I'm saying Dune, by the way. My thing just won't do it.
It's a do not. I made it up. I just
Gosh
came up with
darn it.
letters. That's one where I was just like, let me have letters, and there it is. Okay, there we go. So, Alex, the way the bonus round works is I'm not going to tell you what the question is, and it's not going to be this same type of question. It's just going to be another question related to Dune. You can pick how many of your points you would like to wager, Jeopardy style. You have 5. Jeanette has 3. How many would we like to wager right now?
3.
3? Okay. Not very brave, but okay.
all in.
All in. Good. Okay. So this is a spelling question. Please spell Kwisatz Haderach.
Kwisatz
Spell
Haderach?
it.
Please spell me Kwisatz Haderach.
Give a dog a bone. Gosh, darn you. I gotta type
you
it.
see it?
No, well,
Yeah, I'll
hold on.
spell
Once
it
Jeanette
for
has
you.
it, once Jeanette has
Yeah,
hers written,
hold on.
we could both read them out loud.
All right.
For the Mary Poppins live show, I had everyone spell supercalifragilisticexpialidocious.
Who's that?
SUPER.
PERCALIFRAGIL.
Sounds like Tesseract.
XPIALID.
All right, please cooperate.
Okay.
Yes, I win.
Alex, please.
Yeah, he's like,
please,
he knows he's got it.
please spell. Alex, I can't read. Well, Jeanette, you didn't get it, so you.
I don't know that I
didn't
got
get
it. I just know
I
that
can
you
tell
didn't
you
get
I
it.
didn't get it.
Alex, please read out your spelling for me.
KWISATZ HADERACH.
You got it.
Yeah, man. Kwisatz Haderach.
How did you know how to? How?
Yeah,
Subtitles.
yeah. In all my years.
This guy, we watched it with subtitles together. Remember, we had.
I wasn't clocking how to spell Kwisatz. I was trying to wrap my mind around what Kwisatz Haderach was.
It's also pretty phonetic. If once you get the the CH as a hard cuss sound. And,
I guess.
Yeah, quiz.
I wouldn't assume that I wouldn't have assumed that Haderach was a hard CH though. I thought it would have been.
Well, I thought it was a Q.
In the new movie, you can even hear in Paul's visions, which actually that's another note. I really liked I thought it was interesting in the new movie how Paul's visions were actually they had the element where his visions were not actually predicting the truth. He would see false visions. I thought that was cool compared to the old movie. And especially at the end where they talked, the visions told him that killing somebody else is killing yourself and you have to die to become who you're supposed to be. Anyway, but my point was with the Kwisatz Haderach, you can actually hear the voices in the vision in some of the visions when they say Kwisatz. Some of them say Kwisatz Haderach, like the German
I
sound.
did hear them saying it in the back. Yeah.
Yeah. So like if you like, so that's just a tidbit of like, if you heard that, then you can get kind of, you know.
He's not necessarily predicting the future.
Yeah.
And that's another thing that they don't necessarily, like, he says it, but nobody else really says it to like solidify it to you that those are not predictions of the future.
Yeah, he has the one line because like when he meets the Reverend Mother after the box, she asks him about the visions, and she says, "Do you often see things like do the things that you see in your dreams often happen exactly as you see them?" And he responds, "Not exactly."
Not exactly. Yeah.
And then from then on, I mean, yeah, it's just consistently he sees himself getting killed and stuff, and it's like, that's probably not going to happen. You're the protagonist.
Because he is the Quitsats, not the Quizats. This is my horrible Southern pronunciation coming out full force.
He is the Kwisatz Haderach.
Kwisatz.
Sorry.
And it always either sounds like knick-knack, paddywhack, or it sounds like hacky sack. And I just can't get either out of my head.
Just my initial reaction, I remember, like within a day of seeing this for the first time, I was complaining about how I could just make up nonsense words and then spend 2 hours explaining them to you, and it would be the same as Dune. And I now appreciate Dune a little bit more, but I still kind of stand by that.
Well, I think one of the reasons it didn't catch on the way with moviegoers the way that Star Wars did. Like, Star Wars has got things that are easy to say, like Jedi. Like, that's pretty freaking not Kwisatz Haderach. I'm like, nobody's walking around going, "Oh man, I'm gonna be the Kwisatz Haderach with the Bene Gesserit." Like, that's a mouthful.
I'm trying to think if there's anything like remotely like that in Star Wars, in like the original trilogy or any of them.
Mouthful I can
think. Chewbacca.
Yeah, and actually Finn, the Dune fan who couldn't make it, said that he made the bold statement that the Bene Gesserit are better than Jedi, and I don't know how I feel about that. Like, as in, like, he thought the Bene Gesserit could beat Jedi in a fight, or what? I think he just meant, like, overall that they're cooler and better as, like, a thing, as a narrative creation. That's definitely
if
arguable.
I read the books, I might feel differently.
Yeah, it's definitely arguable.
Yeah, well, I think the Bene Gesserit are more, they calculate more, and I don't think they have any false illusions about what they're doing, whereas the Jedi kind of tell themselves that they're not selfish, and they are, at least in the prequels. Yeah. Whereas the Bene, like, they know what they're doing.
Yeah, and they never claim to be the good guys.
Exactly. I mean, there is a lot of questionable ethics about selective breeding to create the Kwisatz Haderach. And then like, you just see how angry it makes poor emo little 15-year-old Timothy Chalamet. It's like, you made me a freak.
Yeah.
Brilliant. All right. Well, any closing thoughts about Dune, either the movie or the Duneverse?
Just that if someone has never seen the 84 movie, they should just go ahead and watch this one first and then go back and watch it. Because I feel like it can help you, but it can also make you not want to watch this one. And I would say if you're going to pick one for the story, maybe start with this one because you're going to have some new entries into that. You have something else to look forward to. That's my opinion.
Well said. Alex?
Yeah, closing thoughts. Yeah, I guess I would just say for both movies and for movies in general, I think they all benefit from repeated viewing. But again, that also depends on what kind of moviegoer you are. Of course, there are people who get different things from movies. So, but if you are the kind of person who enjoys world building, enjoys getting into lore, enjoys, finding like noticing something new the second time watching something or whatever. I think both films have that. I have more experience with the 84 film. I've watched that way more times. And with the new film, it's like I've hopefully communicated clearly up until now. The 84 film stylistically is just so different, but also so the movie itself is so packed full of stuff, not necessarily in a good way or a productive way or a useful way, or in a way that benefits it as a movie, but it's packed with stuff that in a way that as you watch it over and over again, there are going to be new things to pick up on. There are going to be new understandings. Oh, I've heard that line 10 times in a row. I don't have to think about that line anymore. And that line actually can help explain the line that comes after it, or the line that comes, 20 lines later or whatever. Right. So that's something that I would say specifically to Dune, and specifically to Dune 84. Watch it, multiple times if that interests you, if you want to have that experience of like learning, mining as much as you can from what, in my opinion and perspective, is an interesting world. Like the 84 movie is interesting. It's not necessarily completely well constructed as a film, but it does have interesting stuff that has been a pleasure for me to kind of discover as I've watched it over and over again. So rewatch movies and get more from them every time.
Well said.
Yeah.
Well said. All right. Brilliant. Well, thank you for joining us, everyone. I didn't change my mind on this movie, but maybe I'll watch it again. Who knows?
Yeah.
Get more out of it. There it is. So yeah, we're just going to do a go around now. And Alex, we're going to start with you. Tell us, even though you have no social media, who are you? Anything that you want the people watching to know? Anywhere that they can find your work?
No, yeah. Like you can, maybe a friend of a friend knows, maybe, add Matt on Facebook. Maybe you can see me through him, but I really don't post things or keep people updated unless I speak with them directly. So, that might change in the future, but for now, if you're, unlucky enough to figure out a way to contact me directly, then, do that, and maybe we'll keep in touch. And but otherwise, look around. Maybe you'll see me. Yeah, try to find me. Where's Waldo? Play Where's Waldo. Try to find me. That's the challenge.
Challenge accepted. Okay, thank you, Alex. Jeanette, how about you?
Sorry, I don't know how you follow this. I'm Jeanette. You can find me on Instagram at TinkerJ787. Like I said before, mostly Disney content. Right now, it's honestly going between here at Teacup For One and over at We Like Theme Parks. And Sunday, you can catch me with Miriam on Disney Coast to Coast on FPE. And then I'm doing March Madness the Ride over on We Like Theme Parks all month. And since we didn't say it before, I will say, since we usually end with this, I don't think that it deserves to win Best Picture.
Oh, I forgot to ask that, but I felt like
I do not think it deserves to win Best Picture. Good movie, not Best Picture.
Well said. All right. Thank you, Jeanette. All right. And if you're watching this is my channel. Hello, my name is Matt, and I have 2 degrees. Thank you so much for joining us for another edition of the Teacup For One Oscar Movie Marathon. We're going to be back next week. We have 2 more shows until Oscar night. Next week is the one that I've been waiting for so long. I'm so excited. It's West Side Story. Can't wait. So we're going to be talking about what I think is one of the best films of the year. But I'm not biased. No, actually I am, and I'll admit it. I'm biased, and I can't wait for it. So excited. And then after that, maybe I'm even more excited for the one after that. After that, we are going to be doing the Oscar pool episode, where a bunch of us are just going to go through all the Oscar categories and say which movie we think deserves to win for each whatever. So I think that's going to be a fascinating discussion. So please join us. That will be next Wednesday as well as the Wednesday following. Otherwise, just keep an eye on the channel. Also, fun news. As we mentioned at the beginning, I just opened up a Teacup For One t-shirt store. So the official announcement and launch is going to be happening hopefully within the next week or so. But the store is open. I'm just not really pushing it yet. But if you want to buy a shirt they're available. And there's a lot of fun designs. I pinned the link in the comments. So, go check that out. And yeah, that's it for now. Thank you for joining us, everyone. Once again, my name is Matt, and I have 2 degrees, and that's the Teacup for One. How do I end this? Oh, also go watch Lauren's show on Castles, Capes, and Clones, because he's amazing. And there was a conflict, which makes me sad. But go watch his show, because it's amazing. It's happening right now. And I'm ending this. Here we go.